Salvete omnes, pax vobiscum. I'm a Dominican Catholic priest. My name is Father Mislav, and you're watching a reaction to Warhammer 40k. Welcome to Dominican Priest Plays. This is a channel where a Catholic priest covers some interesting topics from the gaming culture, specifically Warhammer 40k universe. That's the first thing that I delved into, and then I'm currently covering. I'm actually playing Rogue Trader. That's a CRPG, isometric, very interesting, very detailed, very good. I'm walking through it very slowly, but thoroughly as much as I can, given the time that I have. I've been delving a little bit inside of the Warhammer lore. I watched all 13 parts of the Hell's Reach movie, which I really do suggest, not just my reaction, but in general for you to watch if you haven't already. I know that there are a lot of different channels covering a lot of lore. I know that Bricky is one of the most popular ones, not because he has the most lore-accurate content, but because he's interesting, he's funny, and he's quite good for newcomers to Warhammer. And I really want to have a general feeling, a general idea of all the factions that exist within the Warhammer. After him, we can delve inside of other more, let's say, detailed channels such as Luetin, or is it pronounced Luetin? Maybe that's a French name, not sure. Westhammer, I think one of them. Arch, I think one of them. I'm sure there are others as well. I think that Warhammer exploded in popularity during the COVID times. I was familiar with the existence of Warhammer long time ago. I played Dungeons & Dragons, and one of my friends was always a Warhammer 40k maniac. I never really delved into it. It was a little bit too dark for me, but now, within the different context that I am in as a Catholic priest, because I was not born a priest, and most of my life, actually, I did not live as a faithful Christian, faithful Catholic, or any Christian at all. But now it's a different perspective that I have. It's a medieval Catholic church inside of the space 40,000 years in the future, give or take. It's without moral verticals. It's hard to find what is actually good, and there are a lot of things which are objectively evil inside. But I like the challenge of finding good things within many tainted things, trying to find order within chaos, trying to find truth hidden among many lies. That is, after all, my brothers and sisters, my friends, the world that we're living in. It's filled with different lies, and it's hard to find the truth. It's filled with riddles, and we have to uncover them, unpack them, and find the answer that is hiding behind. Now, this is a long video. This is a very long video, guys. And it's just part one. So I'm going to start reacting. I don't want to obsess about it. I'm not fishing for millions of likes. I know I'm not going to get them. I'm not fishing for, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Most probably I will not get them for many years or ever. It doesn't matter. I know that you who are watching this will like it, because I'm going to be giving an honest Catholic commentary, not only Catholic, but my personal ones as well, from philosophical, historical, theological standpoint, moral theology also, and just honest commentary, whether I like or dislike some things. Language. Well, English is not my native language. Maybe you can notice that, maybe not, I don't know. Depends if you are English or American or from some other country. I'm Croatian. I'm 35-year-old, young Dominican priest from Croatia, currently living in Zagreb. So probably you're gonna notice a little bit of language barriers, fighting to find some words that I cannot so easily grasp within my head. Sometimes I will just translate specific concepts or words from one language to another. Hopefully it will not be an issue. Without further ado, let's jump inside of this reaction. Now let's see how long we're gonna manage before making the first cut. And probably I'll be gonna splitting it maybe 2, maybe 3 parts. I really doubt I'm gonna be making, what, 3-hour video or 2.5-hour video, the whole video and me commenting on Bricky. But what I really want to know is what's the feeling of all the factions. And specifically, I'm I have a good feeling that I might make a reaction list, or what's the name of it when you put different content on the scale with S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, making a tier list basically of all the factions that I see. Of course, I'm gonna like some of them more, I'm gonna dislike some of them more than others, but I'm not just gonna be making a tier list based on what are they more congruent with my Catholic worldviews. Yeah, that's gonna be part of it, of course, but how well written are they? And also, are there just inconsistencies or some illogical things that make no sense for me? And that's it. Yeah, why not? It's always personal. It's always unique. So you will or you may not agree with me. I don't care. You're watching this just to see how a Catholic priest will react. Without further ado, let's jump inside of the reaction.
In the kind brightness of the far past, there was no war. Our galaxy was, for a long time, fairly empty and quiet. The first known species to appear during this time are known only as the Old Ones, cosmic entities that traveled across the galaxy with ease and seeded life through the stars.
First creation, it would seem, are the Old Ones, first powerful beings. Created beings who travel through galaxies. Okay.
Shortly thereafter, a new species began to arise. The Necron tier, evolving under the harshness of a devastatingly powerful star. The short-lived and irradiated Necron tier try to find the secret to eternal life and to be freed from their terrible existence. As they expand through the stars, they find the Old Ones and they plead to them to share the secrets of the universe and grant them purchase from their short and painful existence. The Old Ones respond with a lol and a lamau, and with their immense power, they force them back to their homeworld. The Necron tier, filled with rage and hatred, make it their duty to get revenge on the Old Ones. A revenge that would come swiftly as a chance encounter with other gods gave them a solution.
So we are speaking of them as gods. Of course, we have to define the terms. The gods, we don't really mean the gods as in our world, you know, more like super powerful creatures, but just material creatures, just like anything else. Highly evolved, highly advanced, more ancient, whatever, but just creatures, right? So Necron or Necron tier, they disliked the idea of them declining their plea for immortality. So they became angry. Okay.
Other gods were known as the Catan, a race of highly powerful.
What?
Swiftly, as a chance encounter with other gods gave them a solution. These other gods were known as the Catan.
Do I have the subtitles? They're automatically generated. Well, better than nothing. Maybe just for you guys. I can understand well enough. I don't think this is how it's pronounced. Catan. It's not Cathan. But I think it's better to have subtitles than not to have. Just in case.
A race of highly powerful star-consuming entities. Do not fear, young mortals, for we, the Catan, will provide you with the immortality you seek. Come now, won't you shake a poor sinner's hand? Quoted from Mephetron, the Deceiver. The Necron tier accepted the Catan's offer of immortality, but believe it or not, this turned out to be a ruse. A trick. The Catan crafted gigantic furnaces and began the process of biotransference. The Necron tier willingly walked line by line into the furnace engines made by gods who devour stars and had their souls consumed instead. The short-lived, irradiated, and cancer-inflicted race of the Necron tier ceased to be, and the immortal, soulless Necrons remained. Now backed by the
So what, they became just machines or what?
immense power of the Catan, the Necrons rally against the Old Ones, and the bitter conflict in the stars at this time is known as the War in Heaven. Despite creating various races and entities to aid them in this battle, the Old Ones are overwhelmed and eradicated down to the last, due to the sheer power of the Catan fat off the souls of the Necron tier, and with an army of unthinkable robotic slaves at their behest. However, the Catan are greedy, spiteful gods, and when there was no foe worth killing, they...
Okay, so gods, they're just powerful beings, okay? We have the old gods, and we have the Catan. One were like, more or less good beings. They don't want to just give immortality or superpowers to someone, because it's irresponsible, I guess. And the Catan are just evil. They go and they devour. Like parasites, maybe? Just wanting to consume and to devour, not caring for the organism within which they're dwelling. That's like the universe, maybe? I have no idea. Maybe I'm speaking foolish things, but it would seem to me that Catan are definitely more evil than the old gods, and the Necrons took the power from Catan and they lost their souls. So they became, what, mindless maybe?
turn on each other. The Necrons then put their sights towards the Catan and lay waste to them, securing their freedom. The once subservient Necrons now control their former masters. Worn out and weakened by these wars, the Necrons under their leader Zarek, the Silent King, lie dormant with a plan to eventually wake and reclaim control over the galaxy. Over millions of years, empires rise and they
that's a
fall.
lot.
The
Millions
species
of years.
created by the Old Ones have footholds over the galaxy, but on a pale blue dot in the thick of
That
all
could
this
be
conflict,
Terra.
humanity begins to evolve. And for the most part, the basic path of humanity's evolution remains the same as it is now for almost 15,000 years.
Okay.
Right now, in the 21st century, this is canon. You, right now, Twitch streamer reacting to this video, you existed at a point in the Warhammer universe. But with time, humanity's ambition and the power of their technology becomes unmatched, and the golden age of expansion begins. Humanity starts to branch out through the stars with powerful tools used for agriculture, mining, and expansion. Some branches of humanity would eventually settle far away from Earth itself, and around this time, the psychic ability of humans are greatly expanded, and what we begin to know as psychers appear. But despite all the progress, things would begin to collapse. The machines created to aid humanity would turn on them in M23, an event known as the Cybernetic Revolt, and trade
okay. M23, that would be Millennia 23, right?
Would begin to collapse due to the immaterial warp, aka actual hell, beginning to cause ruptures in space and time. These warp stones would separate humanity, and this would be what is known as the Age of Strife.
Storms,
the warp,
I think, not
a
stones.
sea of souls, storing all thought, emotion, and the souls of those who have passed on begin fluctuating into something terrible, as far on the horizon, something horrendous was brewing. You see, the warp isn't just a random assortment of chaotic energy. It is fairly well organized thanks to those living in the galaxy. The warp itself acts as an afterlife of sorts, and the actions of the innumerable amount of creatures who live in the galaxy have manifested a pantheon of organized entities known as the Forces of Chaos. At their helm are three major entities, Khorne, Nurgle, and Tzeentch. However, a fourth one, Slaanesh, was about to be born. The ancient Eldar were one of the first species created by the Old Ones, and due to their extreme...
Okay, context. Eldars, ancient beings, were created by the old gods, or old ones. Is that the same? Old ones and old gods? Were not the old gods defeated? Or first warp gods maybe are the old ones, warp deities. I think the name deity, the concept of deity is more clear than when we say god.
and unbridled excess. The birthing of Slaanesh tore a hole in the galaxy and forever split the Eldar into those of the Craftworld, who sought to bring their species back together, and those of the Drukhari, who wished to continue what caused the birth of Slaanesh in the first place. The birthing of this fourth Chaos God settled the warp storms of the Imperium and ended the Age of Strife, but humanity was still fractured.
Okay, so something happened, something big happened. I know that from your guys' comments during Rogue Trader about the Eldari, and yeah, basically they were so debaucherous, like Sodom and Gomorrah, but to the nth power, and they created a literal demon god because of that, Slaanesh. And after all that happened, that kind of settled down, I guess. So they're responsible for a lot of chaos, a lot of hell, literal hell that broke loose within their material world, right?
So one man revealed himself and spearheaded an immense attempt to reunite all the fractured pieces of humanity.
The Emperor.
That man was the Emperor of Mankind. Yeah. After reclaiming the nearly destroyed Earth, the Emperor embarked on the unification wars to unite humanity under the banner of the Imperium of Man. However, due to the very long and devastating impact of the Age of Strife, humanity as we know it is not the same. To reconquer Earth, the Emperor would need more than mere men. Great beings, known as the Thunder Warriors, were recruited by the Emperor to reclaim the Earth with ease. But these warriors are a blunt tool and had overstayed their welcome. He would need something better.
Right, he destroyed them. I watched The Last Church. There's a video on YouTube. That's the first reaction video that I ever made. So the sound quality and the video quality, especially the sound quality is really not that great. I still didn't have the equipment as I have it now. I mean, I've just had this for the last couple of days. But the reaction to The Last Church was very interesting. You know, the mysterious stranger entering the last church, speaking with the last priest within Terra, within the world, by the name, and the mysterious stranger is Apocalypsis. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't watched, but presumably most of you have watched or read The Last Church. But within the Last Church movie, at one point, Thunder Warriors actually emerge. I thought they were just Astartes, the Space Marines, but then you guys told me that they are the Thunder Warriors. Much more aggressive and actually more powerful than the newer versions. The newer versions are more sophisticated, I guess. That's how I understood it, at least. Okay, let's continue. Wow, this is going to last long, but it's fun so far. Okay.
Superhuman soldiers that will have the skill and cunning exponentially greater than the mortal man. These new warriors would be commanded by an elite group of his very own sons known as the Primarchs. Unfortunately, though, Daddy didn't charge the baby monitor, and his 18 sons would be stolen by the forces of chaos and scattered across the galaxy. This would begin the Great Crusade,
I don't know the details,
monumental task to take back the stars in the name of humanity and reclaim the lost Primarch sons. However, he would need the fires of industry to make this happen. Looking to the distant cousins of Mars, the Emperor
So the Crusade is basically reconquering the galaxy, but also for the purpose of finding his sons, right? Who were made basically with his genetic code. I don't know if they're like made with the usual way of making persons. I don't know how to put it, right? Or is it like a biochemically engineered, like kids born from tubes?
And a treaty with the technologically irradiated hellscape of the Red Planet and allowed the cult of the machine god, the Mechanicum, to supply his crusade. While Space Marines were the tip of the spear, their numbers pale to the vast might of the Imperial Army and Navy. The Astra Militarum and their seemingly endless numbers make up the bulk of the fighting force for humanity, supplied by the intelligence and prowess of various agents of the Imperium, such as rogue traders and assassins. Due to the lack of connectivity between the worlds, what a society had become over thousands of years became mysterious complex and varied. Tools, once used for harvesting and agriculture, now are being used as machines of war in the form of Imperial knights. Some of these fractures of humanity would even be changed further and become unrecognizable to the average human, with differences in size, skin color, appendages, cat ears, sometimes. Some would go so far to become their own galactic societies, like the miners of the Galactic Core and their immense supercomputers.
Like a very modern projection inside of the
After an incredible amount of effort and books, the lost sons of the Emperor would be reunited, and the Imperium of Man would be firmly established. This, however, would not last. Be it intentional or accidental, the Emperor would not reveal to his sons the true nature of the galaxy and the terrors of the warp. And this oversight would result in one of the most impactful wars in humanity's history. The favorite son of the Emperor, Horus.
But he didn't mention what is the true nature of the galaxy and what is it that he was hiding. I reacted to the, it's a very short video actually of the Horus heresy, so I learned almost nothing, but yeah, one of his sons, the favorite son, the most famous son, Horus, who is much like, I don't know, Lucifer type of a figure, you know, the most powerful of the angels, rebelled against the father, so we have Horus here rebelling against the father, the emperor, who is kind of a, you know, godlike figure, at least Christ-like figure. Some would say antichrist figure, depends from the perspective from which you're viewing that. But, well, we can see the similarities, at least the inspiration taken from the biblical standpoint.
Would fall to the powers of chaos and turn on his father.
So he was corrupted,
this
right?
Betrayal, this backstabbing, this heresy, this Horus heresy.
Yeah.
Would result in a split in the Imperium with devastating consequences. Half of the Emperor's loyal sons would fall to chaos and become the Chaos Space Marines, along with the forces of the Dark Mechanic.
Interesting, half. Okay. Inside of the biblical narrative, we see the fall of angels, which, through the lens of Catholic theology, actually happened at the first instance of time. When creation happened, all the angels were given a choice, either to accept their own being, their own essences, that means that also their own purposes for which they have to live, for which they have to exist. Each of us was basically created with a specific purpose. It's within our nature. We have a human nature, which means we are oriented towards a specific purpose. It's logical. It's natural. It's easy to understand. We don't have to philosophize a lot. But we just transpose that to the angelic beings, and each angel was created for a specific purpose. All of them for the glorification, for glorifying God, of course, but for some specific purposes other than that as well. I don't know, protecting specific human beings, or maybe having a role inside of the salvation history narrative. I have no idea, but each angel, each being, each nature, angelic nature, has its specific telos, specific end, specific goal. Rebelling against God is basically rebelling against our own determined purpose. We want to be free, but in that freedom, we are rejecting our freedom to be what we have to be, what we are created for. In the end, become slaves. But it's kind of counterintuitive, because we are seeing that from the perspective of our fallen natures. We want autonomy, we want freedom by any means necessary. We want to reject anyone who's saying that we have to be like this, like that. But true freedom, my friends, is being able to always opt for what is the best, being able to always choose the good. That means to be truly free. Freedom for excellence, not freedom for indifference, not freedom just like choosing between A and B, whether I'm going to eat apples or oranges. No, that's the lower type of freedom, I don't know. But the highest type of freedom is always being able to choose the best. Being a slave is not being able to choose the good. It's being driven by our passions or sinful passions. So what the angels did, they rejected their telos, their end, their created purpose, and but still they exist. They were created like that, so they live in perpetual state of self-hatred, because they can never run away completely from their original design. They hate themselves, they hate God, they hate everything in creation. Because everything in creation has to be oriented towards God. It was created for that purpose. Okay. It seems my light died. Doesn't matter. I think we can see each other well. Yes, we can. The camera is still fine enough. Let us continue after this small soliloquy about the creation of angels and the fall of angels. Oh yes, I'm sorry, I forgot. The fall of angels. In the book of Revelation, it says that the dragon took down the third of the stars with his tail. So that is interpreted as the instance of fall of angels. Basically, a third of the angelic hierarchy was being pulled together with the first fallen angel, Lucifer, or Satan. Well, he became Satan, from Lucifer to Satan, right? So a third of angels. But here, inside of this universe, inside of this mythology, we could call it, Warhammer 40k, mythos, there's half of the Marines that fell, and they are like, I don't know, they're superhuman, definitely more like angelic creatures, right?
And the Chaos Knights. The conflict would result in the absolute obliteration of Horus and the physical death of the Emperor himself. The near-dead body of the Emperor would be placed on the Golden Throne to serve as a beacon of humanity and allow for the continued ability to travel the stars, protected by his most loyal, the Adeptus Custodes. The Imperium would be vulnerable during this age of rebirth, and Terra would find itself under siege by one of the most formidable species in the galaxy, the Orcs. As time went on and memories of the Emperor's vision began to fade, the Emperor would become less of a head of state and more of a religious figure. And the Imperium would change to reflect this. The leadership on a planet would be at the behest of the High Lords of Terra, and their actions would be courtesy of the incomparable power and authority of the Inquisition. The zealots of the Imperium would intensify and create a brand new era known as the Age of Apostasy. And this ecclesiarchal command of the Imperium would end up with one of the strongest fighting forces of Terra, the Adeptus Sororitas. Over time, this age would come to pass, and we would approach the 40th millennium of Warhammer 40,000.
Okay. By the way, fun fact, the most famous inquisitors in the history of the Catholic Church were, guess who? The Dominicans. So very often you will see on the paintings of the Inquisition and the Inquisitors, very often, not always, painting of Dominican friars, Dominican priests. Well, there are a lot of Franciscans as well, and many religious orders in general, because of two reasons. We have a vow of poverty, so it's much harder to bribe a friar. It's much harder to bribe someone who made a vow of poverty. I mean, we're all flawed, so it's not impossible. Some people fall to it, but it's harder. And other thing, the Dominicans, at least, but some others as well, were very educated. So the Inquisition basically was a body that had to inquire, it had to investigate, it had to find the truth behind things. You know, of course, you want to have more educated people, also for the protection of the innocent as well. If someone is just accused of being a heretic, accused of being a sorcerer, of a witch or something like that, you want an educated person to investigate that, not a uneducated zealot. So that is actually the reason why a lot of religious people, specifically Dominicans, were ahead of the Inquisition. And our third point is also very important. We were directly and are directly under the Pope. So we are a papal order under the protection of the Pope. So we have a specific, autonomy, but maybe confidence with the Pope. I think that's also part of the reason we do not serve the bishops on our local areas. We have our own specific autonomy or specific way of evangelizing, working, apostolic work, pastoral work. We are our own autonomous unit, and we answer only to our own superiors within our order or to the Pope. we don't answer to any other bishop other than the Bishop of Rome. Okay, let's continue.
Which, you guessed it, would come with its own form of problems. A primitive species once found during a recon mission would be able to evolve in relative secrecy for 6,000 years, becoming a highly advanced coalition of aliens known as the Tau Empire. And if the threats of the galaxy weren't bad enough, there are threats from outside the galaxy. As a monster has begun to wrap its tendrils around the Milky Way,
race.
the Tyranids, monsters that serve a psychic hive mind and present tactics previously unseen
are like
in the Milky
aliens
Way,
from
be it a
Ridley
direct
Scott,
assault
right?
with their monstrous bug-like presence or through the more covert gene stealer cults. The presence of yet another threat in the galaxy is proving to be overwhelming to the Imperium. In the 41st millennium, there is no peace among the stars. At any point, your life can and will be threatened by the Xenos races uncountable, or by the arch enemy of chaos within, or by the decroded terror that is the Imperium itself.
And like the imposing presence of orcs within the House Reach
bloody regime imaginable. Forget the power of technology and science, or the safety of promise and understanding. For in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
Yeah. Each House Reach part became with that. There is only war. Okay.
A fantastic job once again, Mr. Kurz, the Night Haunter himself. Oh, didn't you love that, my faithful audience? Once again, we have another criminal over the course of 6 hours break every single bone in his body. And with that, once again, our glorious leader has brought the crime rate to 0%. Always brought to you here on the Strawman News. I'm your host, Bricky. Thank you once again for joining us. Our top stories for
I guess there's
tonight.
some inside Warhammer jokes. I don't really understand them.
Extra dark, so make sure you pack those extra batteries for your lamp packs. And of course, let's not forget the fantastic gang violence problem we're currently having. Oh, I'm sorry. What's that? Oh, right. It's gone. It's looking to be a chilly one tonight as well, so make sure your skin capes are nice and tight.
Skin capes.
Wait, hold on, one moment. No. Adamantium reserves have tripled? Wait, I'm sorry, self-harm rates have gone down to 0%. The Night Haunter smiled? No. This could only mean one thing. It is the Strawman News' great privilege to bring some color back in your life with the brand new 3-part Gamer Subs drop exclusively on this here news network.
Okay,
5 years ago, I made every Warhammer 40k faction explained. A passion project of mine for a universe that I enjoyed so much. Its main purpose was to be a drawbridge, the separation between the layman who had only ever seen the big armored blue man situated neatly next to a Wetzel's Pretzels, and then the hardcore Warhammer lore nerd. That was just too wide, and there was nothing bridging these two together. Since 2020, Warhammer has exploded in popularity thanks to
I guess that's why everybody
game
liked
updates
Bricky.
and a few excellent
He made the bridge,
games
right?
and a couple miniseries. The sheer volume of people who have told me they have purchased miniatures due to that video alone makes me feel as if Games Workshop owes me commission. However, that video is incomplete. I was not a casual fan, but I was also not a hardcore.
Not really more
junkie.
accurate
In the
as you
5
have
years
told.
since that video's release, multiple channels have sprouted up, and the drawbridge between casual to the obsessed has never been wider or easier to traverse. Even I myself have been a part of Adeptus Ridiculous, a podcast teaching lore in a much simpler and condensed form. Needless to say, I've learned a lot. Warhammer is so much more than just Spaceman shoots big gun. It has also grown substantially from its origins, being a Warhammer fantasy spin-off just in space. Now, it is a black library filled with immensely deep characters, difficult themes, and even some tear-jerking stories. It is a backdrop for a million stories over a million worlds, and I did not see its true depth in 2020. But now, I'd like to share what I've learned. We just had a brief summary of the world and each faction that takes place during it. And we did that because to truly understand each faction, we must understand what makes them the way they are. And to do so, we need to begin in chronological order, discussing their origins, their culture, their powers, and of course, what makes them oh so grimdark. So let's begin with the group that started it all and sing praise to the infinite empire.
The Necrons. So they are the first race that we're going to cover.
The Necron tier were the original form of the Necrons, an alien race far away from us that lived short, painful lives due to the irradiation of their star. Normally, this would manifest as like a sort of cancer, a space cancer of sorts. The Necrons are very much inspired by the ancient Egyptian aesthetic, but unlike the windswept dunes commonly associated with it, the irradiated hellscape the Necron tier endured was far from picturesque. This also translates into their hierarchy. They are a race of nobles and peasants. Most of the peasants would often live for their very short amount of time, only a couple of decades, while the nobles tended to have better care and would live a little bit longer, but still far less than the average lifespan of a human, even today in the 21st century. The leader of the Necrons was Zarek, the Silent King. He was the one who took the deal with the Catan and the Deceiver. Of course, he wasn't aware of the fact that they were known as the Deceiver at the time, but the whole species was blinded by hate after being debased by the Old Ones on their quest to cure their illness. The sheer pain that underwent the Necron race can't be understated, as their fear was manic. The Catan are, of course, gods that eat stars, and when the leader of your species tells you to march into the gigantic green furnaces to ascend to immortality, you march. The scenes from these are long lines of both the peasantry and nobles clutching their loved ones in a frantic act to save their own lives. Many of them already inflicted in the late stages of this space cancer, some of them crawling into the biotransference furnaces, trying to outrace death itself.
Interesting. That's a huge fear of mortality. So they were willing to do whatever, to sell their old souls, to sacrifice, I guess, what is most valuable in them. I don't know the value of souls. It seems that the soul is somewhat different concept within the Warhammer 40k than in our world, but selling their souls, selling what's most valuable to them in return for prolonging their life, even infinitely maybe. But what is the cost? What is the true cost of that?
Without realizing, death was the one who made these to begin with. What came out the other side was a soulless husk. Nice. And I say that literally.
Soulless
a soul is not an abstract concept like it is in our world, an immaterial version of oneself discussed and debated in religion and philosophy. No, in Warhammer, a soul is a real, tangible item of oneself.
Okay, that's useful to know. So, soul within Warhammer 40k universe is something material, I guess. It's tangible. So yes, we can touch it. It's material. It's unusual then. So they lose a part of themselves, I guess. It's like we lose half of our brain capacity. Maybe something like that. I'm not sure. They would have to explain it in much more detail. But I disagree with one point, that the soul is an abstract concept. There are different takes on the existence of soul within our world, for sure. But in general, it's not that hard to understand it. Okay, we have the Platonic concept of the soul. It's more like soul is something that is hidden or something that is chained within the body. In a way, wants to escape the body, to be free, in a way. And also the soul, even from Plato, but specifically in Aristotle, is always divided. They have specific parts of the soul, lower parts and the higher parts. Aristotle had a different take. It was not like a separate essence abiding within the body, living within the body. But for Aristotle, it's much more interesting. Actually, Christian philosophy, if we can call it that, incorporated Aristotelian thought within its worldview, because it's much more, it makes much more sense. And it can be combined with the biblical worldview, with the revelation given to us by Jesus Christ. So the soul is what gives the body its life. The first entelecheia of the body is the soul. That's what Aristotle said. Entelecheia would be literally like having the end, having the goal, having the purpose, having the telos. Entelecheia. So it's the actualizing of the bodily principle. Body is not complete by itself, because it goes towards the end of being alive, towards the end of moving, of growing, of reaching its full potential. And so is the life-giving force, so to say, or life-giving thing. I don't know, words are escaping me right now. I'm not really a PhD in philosophy. I know some basics. Maybe some of you guys there are actually like philosophers, so you will definitely be able to explain that much better, and you do understand what I'm speaking. But for those who have no idea, I just want to say that soul is what gives life to the body. It's not like a separate essence. The two of them have to exist together. That's the point. That's the purpose. It's not, in this way, how Bricky said, abstract, like, oh, there are different philosophies and religions speaking about the soul. No, I think, in a way, they're just two main ones, and maybe the third one, like like David Hume, like, no, it's just a perception, perspective, illusion, and stuff like that. But either it's a separate essence, that's Plato and Descartes. The soul is a separate essence from the body or substance, or it's more Aristotelian, Thomistic Aristotelian. The soul gives life to the body, and those two have to exist together. We have potency, we have act. Okay.
And the Catan basically were just like to every single person who went in their furnaces. If you were a peasant, you came out
what did they
Necron
lose
warrior,
when they lost soul?
and you,
That's
as
the
an
question I'm
individual,
interested in.
have ceased to be. You have no mind.
What did they
You
actually
have no soul, and your body, as you know it, is
no
made of an
mind.
extremely advanced mass of re-knitting living metal known as necrodermis. You cannot think for yourself, for you do not have a brain to think with. All you do now is await protocols from your overlords, which are the nobles who came out of the furnaces with their minds intact, not their souls, mind you. Because
so he does make
but their minds are very much
distinction
intact.
between the soul and the mind.
These nobles now have command protocols,
which is also, it's also very interesting, because again, Aristotelian and Christian perspective, again, we have the spiritual part of our soul. Aristotle would say that we have what first is the vegetative soul, then is the animal soul, right? And then the rational soul. The rational soul is what makes us humans. We have the angelic part, the rational part. We have the animal part, the like lower part. But those two combined is what makes us human. But the higher part of our souls is our intellect, our capacity to grasp the truth, to grasp concepts, to see within. Our intellects always are seeking for the truth. Always. That's how we are wired. Each of our intellects, if we are human, always tries to grasp, to know the truth, to know. You cannot know something that is not. You want to know, that's immediately connected with the concept of truth. And we have our will, an ability to choose, and the will is always wired towards the good. We want to always choose what is good. Of course, we are sometimes wrong. We recognize something good, but it's not good, it's bad for us. But we see it under a different light. But we always want to good, even if we are misguided towards it. We always go towards the good through our will, and we always go towards the truth through our intellect. and that's a spiritual part of the soul. But here they say like the peasant, I guess, caste lost even their wills or intellects, and the nobles didn't, but they lost their souls. So again, what is the soul within Warhammer 40k?
All of their peasantry
what is a soul?
And do with them whatever they wish.
Maybe that's
Zarek, the
main question of Warhammer 40k.
Is the most advanced of all
what
the
is the soul?
A perfect metallic version of himself with incredible power and intelligence. His strength allowed him to lead the undead and the unthinking armies of the Necrons to battle against the Catan when they were at their weakest due to their incessant infighting, and then win back their freedom. But gods cannot die. So in reality, what occurred is the Catan were shattered into thousands of pieces, and each shard of their god was trapped in a stasis vault and mind controlled to do the bidding of the Necrons they once enslaved. The biggest challenge they face now are actually the upstarts of the galaxy. The Eldar and the Orcs were quite prominent, and as you can imagine, a galactic war really takes its toll on the joints.
First,
or I
Catan
guess the servos.
In the power,
it was
now
in their best interest
Necrons.
to wait out the galactic rise of the other races and come back at a more opportune time. So they went into stasis via these massive tomb complexes hidden beneath various worlds, biding their time until it was once again their opportunity to rule the galaxy. Zarek, the Silent King, as penance for his failure to his people, exiled himself into the darkness.
Then again, my question is, why? Why are they biding their time? What, they became bored? They have no one to kill, no one to conquer? They're the rules of the universe, and now they want to let others take control of the universe so they can reconquer it again? Wow, that's so shallow, if that is the truth, but I cannot see the actual point of it. When it's just power for the sake of power.
For the next 60 million years, with his perfect memory, a constant reminder of the doom he inflicted upon his people. Flash forward to the modern day, and the Necrons are reawakening, but it isn't working as well as it could be. Whether the tomb world is reawakened naturally or by some Imperial moron stepping on a green glowing rock, the Necrons have come back to reclaim a galaxy they consider rightly theirs. But 60 million years of hypersleep have taken
That's a
their
lot
toll.
of hypersleep.
Many Necron dynasties awake with systems unrestored and huge swaths of their population's minds completely lost. Necron nobles.
Also, the tombs where they're buried. My question is, how come those tombs still exist after 60 million years? Shouldn't they like decay at least a little bit?
Wake with various mental faculties compromised, sometimes exhibiting traits similar to excessive paranoia, schizophrenia, or even dementia. One notable Necron, Nemesor Zandrek, believes that he is still back on his home planet fighting off separatists and interlopers. See, Oberyn, the separatists come, attempting to outflank me as they did at the 4th Battle of Vindach. How they calculate that daubing themselves green and roaring like savages will produce a different outcome, I cannot fathom. But it is of no account. Ready, my legions. Another glorious victory shall soon be ours. Other individuals, such as the esteemed Imitek the Stormlord, seek to usurp the newly returned Silent King for rightful ruler over the Necron race, believing his time has come to an end, while scientists and archaeologists like Trazen the Infinite and Orikin the Diviner spend thousands of years bickering over artifacts and petty squabbles. Truly, the Necrons are a faction of unthinkable, unimaginable power, held back entirely by their own hubris and 60 million years of stasis. It is a species that does not know of time, only of the ravages brought by it. A pharaoh of a dynasty may just be as frightened to awake completely mad as they are to be assassinated while they sleep. Thousands of years pass in an instant. There is a play, like an opera play, a retelling of the war in heaven in the Necron culture that takes 40 years to witness, because why leave? You have no need to eat or vacate your bowels. You are immortal, but you are
actually
soulless.
That sounds interesting.
Despite
and fun.
the Necrons'
incredible
technology,
their
mastery over time, reality itself, despite all of this, they still are missing a soul.
epic stories.
And therein lies the
Epic
biggest
games,
struggle.
epic
Most
movies,
Necrons
epic
look to
stories.
conquest the galaxy, kill the interlopers like the humans, Eldar, and Orcs that scrape at a fraction
That's why the
of their
Bible
power.
is the
But the
most
end
epic
goal
book
for
ever
many,
written.
including Zarek himself, is to return
If you know
the
how to read
souls
it.
to their bodies, to undo the horrible fate he cast upon them. This is not the interest of all. Many simply wish to rule their dynasty with an iron fist and kill all they consider unworthy. But to many others, it is to undo the decision that doomed them all. Before they can do that, there is a pest that needs exterminating. That is the fundamental understanding of the Necrons. They are so hyper advanced that their science borders on magic. They play with the fundamental aspects of reality and time. Their mastery of the physical galaxy is the strongest in the universe. Their weapons reduce people to the barest molecules, and they have devices capable of causing stars to supernova. They are unfathomably difficult to kill, as if you do fell one of their number, the living metal reignites itself, and the reanimation protocols allow it to come back alive once again. They're masters of teleportation, and often killing a Necron fully will just have its consciousness translocated back to their tomb world to await reassembly. Normally they utilize large phalanxes of warriors and honorary combats, but some of them have fallen to various mind viruses. The destroyer cults are hell-bent on killing anything and everyone that lives with an overwhelming force. And then there's the flayed ones, Necrons cursed with I have no mouth and I must scream, a panic attack virus, as the last laugh of Landogo, the Flayer Catan. Slowly losing their minds, they strip apart their foes and adorn their bodies with the skin of their enemies, trying to better return to their old feelings of flesh and blood.
So
the
sad and
Necrons
disgusting.
are a degraded version of their mighty empire, and still one of the biggest threats in the galaxy. The only thing keeping them at bay currently is their awakening sickness and their infighting with no care to the timeline. But they are coming. And slowly, they plan to rid this galaxy of the vermin that inhabit it. My people shackled the stars and broke mortality when the species you sprang from had barely left the slime pools it spawned in. Our wars burned reality, and the dominion of our kings is without limit. The ground you tread on is not yours, it is ours. The war in heaven was a catastrophic time for the galaxy, and as stated in the above quote, burned reality. Of course, souls exist in Warhammer, and in the case of the Necron tier, they were consumed by the star gods. This begs the question, however, if you were to pass on, expire,
and then,
as one might put it, where would your
they
soul
enslaved
go?
The
answer
gods.
to this is the warp. In Warhammer, a soul is real. And so is hell. The afterlife, the Imperium, the Sea of Souls, the Imperium, all of these names refer to the dimension parallel to our own, known as the warp. Now, the warp is not like our reality. It does not follow the classic normalcy of time and space. It is defined as the Sea of Souls, and it acts like this in a more literal way than you can realize. To imagine the warp is to imagine the sea itself. Hell is real, and you can surf on it. It has a current and can become more dangerous depending on where you go and how bad the weather is. As the Imperium is a reflection of our reality and of our souls, all thoughts, all emotions, all feeling that goes with a soul is passed on into the warp. If an entire planet decides it's going to engage in a blood-fueled rampage of murder and gore, then the warp around that planet will be affected in a similar manner. It's not something that you can see. It is a parallel, not perpendicular dimension, but it is changing. To expose oneself to the warp for any period of time invites certain death outside of the most iron-willed of individuals, and to stare into it will drive one mad. Much like the open seas, things dwell in the warp. Whether these beings were always there and were just emboldened by the carnage of the galaxy, we can only speculate at. At a time, you could say it was more calm. But a certain faction's galactic war in heaven didn't do it any favors. Now the warp is turbulent, and its realms belong to a pantheon of gods known simply as The forces of chaos are beings that serve directly under their patron deity. There are 4 current gods of chaos at the moment.
3 plus
Khorne,
1.
Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh. Each of them represent various facets of and emotions of sentient species and play a great game against one another for total control over their realms. Interestingly enough, while their disciples have physical forms, we can understand the Chaos Gods do not have a physical visual that you can perceive in reality. So while there are tons of fantastic fan art, we do not know what they truly look like, though they are conveniently color-coded. Khorne is the god of blood and murder, carnage and slaughter. He is the one who is most powered by the wholesale killing of any living thing. For Khorne cares not from where the blood flows. With a sacred number of 8, he is the lord of all things involving killing and blood and gore. The champions are extremely strong as well, with monumental muscles and extremely large weapons. A true analog to Khorne would be his greater demon, the Bloodthirster, an enormous muscle-bound flying devil with an axe so large it splits tanks in a single swing. They move into battle with armor of brass adorned by the skulls of their foes and pools of freshly spilt blood. This may appear to be quite frightening, of course, demonic, one might say. But in the world of chaos, all emotions feed one of these gods in one way or another. If you were to define Khorne with single words, you would use blood, carnage, murder, skulls. But you'd be missing out on important ones like strength, honor, prowess, courage, and skill. Khorne is not just about the wholesale slaughter of people. He is about the honor and power of martial combat. The true strength there is in besting someone in physical strength and skill. Of course, a murderer would be someone who would feed Khorne, but a soldier could feed Khorne. A martial artist or professional fighter could feed Khorne. They're more nuanced. A warrior, good or bad, feeds Khorne. A diplomat does not. A premier soldier does. A GoFundMe does not. This is what leads many mortals down the path of Khorne, for he will bless those that bring him enough skulls. And in a world this destructive, there are many ways to reap a high tally for him. Prepare the dread claws and unchain the mad ones. Glorious battle awaits us today, for the world below has refused to surrender. Let us descend upon them with fury and rage, giving no quarter and sparing only those warriors who fight well enough to earn a place amongst us. As to the rest, their lives and possessions are ours. Real life demons, by the way, do not have redemptive qualities. Normally, if I ever want to explain Khorne, I just kind of show them this clip. Very dangerous to think that.
I'd never stab you in the back, Shepard. Warriors like you and me, straight to the face.
Moving on, Tzeentch is the second god, the god of trickery and mischief, the changer of ways, the great conspirator and the architect of fate. With a sacred number of 9, Tzeentch is truly the god of change in all of its forms, but there is an obvious undercurrent of mischief and cunning. Tzeentch is such a liar that his pants have gone thermonuclear.
What?
What? Where the what?
His favorite pastime is asking questions that have no answers while simultaneously making up answers on the spot to a question he didn't ask.
Have you ever had a dream that you want him to do you so much you could do anything?
He is such a conniving little bastard that every emotion of lying, of scheming, of trickery is a direct way to help feed him. An unfaithful partner, a politician, a spy. All of these people feed Tzeentch in one way or another, and it doesn't matter if the intentions are good. Acceptance does not feed Tzeentch. Change does. Tzeentch doesn't care about your facts. He only wants opinions. Because he represents change, he also represents hope, though. Schemes are not always bad, and even the hope to make a better tomorrow is the change he seeks. Because he is the architect of fate and the mastery of sorcery, his presence is purely unknowable. Every depiction of a Tzeentchian demon contains more eyes than are necessary and more mouths than I know what to do with. It is a biblically accurate angel if the angel gaslit you into thinking birds are government drones. But are they? The creatures at his disposal adorn themselves with the knowledge of sorceries and the unknown, all to provide a mind-crushing experience. Fighting demons from outside of our reality is difficult enough, but fighting demons from unreality, purposely attempting to trick you, is a whole new thing entirely. And that is before we even get started on the gigantic bird of sorcery you're going to need to face.
Okay, before we continue. The idea of hope, actually, I'm not really sure if I agree and what to think about it. Like the constant change and deceit, lying, just want things to change. Nah, I definitely cannot say that that's connected with hope. I think that's a skewed way of thinking. Hope, it's not without reason, my friends, that the symbol of hope was and still is an anchor. That's stability, okay? But anchored somewhere in the future, somewhere where you are not yet, but you have a hope that you can achieve it. You have good enough reason to believe that you can overcome the difficulties and arrive at the goal, at the end where you want to go to unite yourself with the good that you desire. That's hope, okay? So anchor, you're anchoring yourself there, over there, so you're oriented towards that goal. That's not chaotic. I'm curious. You have to travel, so there is some change in the process of arriving there. That's very much ordered, this ordered travel, ordered trip, okay? That's not chaotic. That's not random. That's very deliberate. That's very much ordered. Some change in there, yes, but to go to achieve the goal, to arrive at the final destination for which you hope for.
Do not ask which creature screams in the night. Do not question who waits for you in the shadow. It is my cry that wakes you in the night, and my body that crouches in the shadow. I am Tzeentch, and you are the puppet that dances to my tune. Third of the Chaos Gods is the one of acceptance of rot and pestilence, the grandfather himself, Papa Nurgle. Nurgle is the exact opposite of Tzeentch. Where Tzeentch believes in change and hope for a future, Nurgle believes in stagnation and the end of everything. At one point or another, we will all decay.
He looks like the magnified version of what happened to chicken that was left inside of the oven during the summer where I spent with my friends in the city of Dubrovnik. So the chicken was not eaten completely and it was left inside of the oven during the day and the night, and I don't know, 2 days later we opened it. It's like full of worms. It was absolutely disgusting. So Nurgle, this guy looks like a really magnified version of that. Oh,
we will all rot and we will all end. And with a sacred number of 7, guys, every single thing, pestilence, boil, and everything in between comes under the great...
And I have to make a confession. We were so stupid that we turned the oven on to kill the worms that are inside. The smell was absolutely obnoxious. Don't ever do that. Just throw it inside the garden or do something. Just don't boil them inside of the oven. Oh, why?
Shadow and girth of Nurgle himself. For Nurgle, the plight of mortals is his fear and wine. And no matter how solid life might be, everything will decay in the end. In the creation of life, there must be an end to that life. And nobody has more creations to end lives than Grandfather Nurgle himself. Every boil, every blemish, every pus-filled wound and disease, every rot and every plague is kept and concocted by Nurgle. This, humorously, keeps Nurgle as a jovial god. He is full of life and laughter, and by creating as many diseases as he possibly can, he shares that joy with mortals. I mean, his envoy is the great unclean one. And look at how happy he is. And there's a lot of him to love. A fear of death in general is feeding Nurgle. All disease makes him stronger, but to pray for salvation for a wounded loved one is to feed
the
Nurgle.
Necrons
The
were
timeless
feeding him
and
a lot,
inevitable fear that one day you will rot and decay is what gives him strength.
Because they were afraid of death.
The Peloton won't feed Nurgle.
Really afraid of
Licking
death.
the doorknob on a public bathroom certainly does. However, should you embrace your grandfather's gifts, you may find an end to your pain. Maybe. All mortal followers of the Chaos Gods found themselves there in one way or another, either through the direct worship or the slow corrupting of their souls. But those that take Nurgle's gifts and embrace the decay of their bodies may end up being chosen among his few as a faithful servant. In doing so, you will be free of the pain caused by Nurgle's ailments, and you may even find yourself just as jovial and happy as he is. Maybe.
So
his
weird.
Enemies shall wither and die. His allies
But
shall
there's some
wither
truth
and
in that,
die. The universe and all within it shall wither
accepting
and die.
your
And when
mortality.
the great corruption has settled over the
Slow
land
dying.
and permeated the very
We have to do
foundations
that.
of
That's
reality
okay. That's
itself,
good, actually.
then shall
Memento
the Lord
mori,
of
the
all
wise
rise
always
from the
said.
rot and ruin, spread his arms wide to reclaim all of his dutiful children. Those were the three major chaos gods for a very long time, emboldened by war and death on a galactic scale, ever present, but now fact on the suffering of a galaxy. One race, for a while, was able to elude the pull of chaos, an advanced race of psychically attuned aliens whose master over the physical world was so strong that chaos could not glean from them the morsels of power they once had. Or so they couldn't. Not for a long while. 60 million years ago, in an attempt to combat the Necrons at Catan, the old ones made a new species. One with innate power in the warp and the ability to harness it with a mastery that was unseen by so many others. A mastery so powerful, the Necrons retreated to sleep in order to wait it out. It was no longer a galaxy to be ruled by them, but instead begin the age of the
Eldar. So that's why they went to sleep.
The Eldar
They were
are a race
defeated.
of pointed-eared humanoids that are all psychically
They
attuned
ran
to
away
the
in their
warp.
holes,
If we're being meta
basically.
here,
Okay,
these
okay.
are space elves, and these elves ruled the galaxy in the time the Necrons went to sleep and
Space
humanity
elves.
began to rise. The Eldar's empire was galaxy-wide and lasted for longer than any other galactic power.
Okay. I get it now. If they're space elves, the Drukhari, I think they were the bad elves, right? So they're like drow. They are like the drow from the D&D. The bad elves and the surface elves, which are like the regular Eldari.
We know
Okay.
of. Their understanding of all things
I
was
see the inspiration.
exceptional. With every single one of them being psychers, they had the ability to master the warp and use it to their advantage. See, being a psyker is basically like being a wizard, or I guess in this case it's more of a sorcerer, since you are born with the gifts as opposed to learning them. In order to utilize your psychic abilities, however, you must then reach into the other dimension, into the warp, into hell for that power. So if you were to say, cast fireball, your mind would reach into the warp, gather the strength to rewrite reality to then cast fireball. Now you might think to yourself, doesn't that mean if you are opening up a power to the warp, you may create a lot of risk to yourself because of all the horrible things we just talked about in the warp? Yes. However, in Warhammer 40k, willpower is a real, tangible thing, in the sense that in its own right, it can be weaponized. Being strong of will means being strong of soul, and being strong of soul means you can resist the pull of the warp that much more.
But you have no idea
more
what
inexperienced
soul is, so
psyker
how can I
opens up a
understand what
hole into the
will
warp that
is?
is large, and that hole widens to get more power, allowing evil things to get in. A powerful psyker is able to open a very small hole, but with immense force to get the same amount of power with less risk. The Eldar are master psychers. Every single one of them can call upon the warp, and over millions of years they have perfected it so much so that they can weave structures out of it. In some species in the galaxy, they utilize the warp itself.
So not only like the suction power from the warp, but also the ability to control all the power that you receive, that you suck from the warp, not to overwhelm you. That is what the willpower of a person does.
For interstellar travel. The Eldar ain't having any of that noise. How about we utilize a fancy alternative mode of travel that is substantially safer than the old ones created called the Webway? What about dying? Miss me with that. We no longer age. And if we do, we can just be reborn like that. Food, water, materials, we make things out of distilled warp essence itself. We sing unreality into cathedrals to dine in. What truly
Well, they were
could
really
the Eldari
abusing it.
Empire possibly fear?
Themselves.
The Eldari Empire's biggest fear was themselves. The society so perfect they wanted for naught. And this led them down dark and dangerous paths. When the base functions of society are no longer a problem for you, you tend to experiment. Perhaps the medium rare steak on your plate would be better if it was elf meat. Hey, I'm not saying we should make cannibalism legal,
that are
but
utilizing our
what's the
destructive
issue
or
with a little
self-destructive
taste?
nature.
Violent sports is one thing, but
It takes two for
how come we
tango.
don't do sports to the death? I mean, I'm just saying, like, if both participants are willing and clear about it, like, what really is the problem there, you know? Art is in the eye of the viewer, and what is considered art is completely up to the concept of one's own interest. A canvas adorned with the blood of a man wronged is truly the visual poetry that our
modern
society
art.
needs.
Absolutely
Hedonism,
atrocious.
with a slow and consistent hedonism.
Give me
The Eldar
Gothic
slid
cathedrals,
backwards
guys.
into debauchery
Give me
of the
Baroque.
sort I cannot discuss on this
Give me
YouTube
Renaissance
video.
art.
Murder on stage,
Just don't
delicacies
give me
and
modern
drugs
art.
distilled from one another, the trade of slaves and concubines, and much worse.
Yeah, so they
the
were
Eldar
really
physiology has
debaucherous.
their emotions heightened, and they can feel more than a human
They just
does.
want us
So while
to
it can
have more
provide
satisfaction.
lows of pure
I
despair,
can't
it can
get
also
no
provide
that with
greater
their favorite
highs
song.
than you have
They
ever
just want
known.
more,
and
more,
swinging
and more.
between the two of them was
Not
the
enough
Eldar
cocaine,
game.
so
the
let's
warp
create more
took
from the warp,
notice
even
of
stronger
this
cocaine.
heavily, and it began to react. On a galactic scale, the debauchery and the
highway
hedonism
to
of the
hell.
Eldar
They
race
were
caused levels of warp
literally on
storm
a
so
highway
pronounced
to hell.
and so volatile that it cut off interstellar travel for all those who used it. Communications between planets was removed, and a nightmarish era of old night began. This continued for thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years. The Eldar, all but removed from the problems being caused as they entered heights of more and more ecstasy. They needed more and more and more. Nothing was ever enough.
No, that's-
more murder,
that's
more torture.
just
It's
the
art,
regular
it's
junkie.
delicacies,
It's always
it's
like that.
life. This silence offends
Everyone who is
Slanesh.
addicted to something is like that.
Wait,
Now we have the
Slanesh,
fourth
the
one.
prince of pleasure, she who thirsts, the god of unspeakable excess, is our fourth chaos god with the sacred number of 6 adorning
consumption,
their title.
consumption,
Slanesh,
consumption, I
it's a bit of a
presume.
tricky one, because with our other 3 chaos gods, there was a certain understanding of human emotions and desires, but for Slanesh, that desire is how they get their power. The words to be used would be decadence, pleasure, perfection, passion, excess,
yeah.
and many others. The pursuit of more. The want to do more.
Yeah, but that's not perfection.
experience more,
Perfection, not just
become
vain
more.
pursuit of
That's
more.
what gives
That's definitely not
Slanesh their
perfection.
gifts.
Perfection
a
is
lot of people
completeness.
believe that Slanesh is something that originates
that
with
is
sex.
done.
Specifically.
Per
And it makes sense
facere,
why they
right?
assume
Perfection.
that. The
You have to
visuals
go
of
into the
Slanesh
root of the
patrons
word.
are all very lithe and sexual, but they are also intentionally androgynous to appear attractive to a variety of intrigues.
course.
However, to think that Slanesh specifically derives from sex would be mistaken. While it is true that a lot
Baphomet
of
inspiration,
humanity's
I presume.
actions can relate to getting laid, and Slanesh is the dark prince of desire, it's more on the lines of feeling an excess of an emotion. It is excessive touch and scent and desire. And a lot of that has to do with sex. That's why it looks like sex, but it's more than just that. A patron of the arts may feed Slaanesh, one that aspires to become the perfect chef or master of their craft, and the sheer pursuit of
the
that
inspiration
alone
is directly
will
from
feed
the
Slaanesh.
real,
Whiplash is Slaanesh's absolute
practices
favorite
that exist,
film.
like sex
Videos where
magic and
people
stuff like
beat
that.
Elden Ring on a dance
This
pad
is the
feed
direct
Slaanesh.
inspiration.
There are no two words in the English language more harmful than good job.
But
is there a line?
More.
No, man, no.
This also moves into the concept of feeling. Sensation is a majorly Slaanesh-coded thing. It might start off feeling good, but then you get to play around
There's a part
little
of me
bit,
definitely
you know?
as
You
well
play with a little
who
bit
is
of pain.
always
Light pain
thirsting for more.
might not be enough,
a
so you
part
might
of that
want
is good,
more.
definitely.
Or inflicting the
But we
pain
have to
could be your jam.
be careful.
Music can increase to
More of
volumes
what
that
in
may
the end?
hurt your ears, and even then that...
Our inner being is thirsting for unification with God, unification with the source, having utmost and perfect pleasure in eternity. Yes, we want that. That's okay. We were actually created for that, Catholic teaching would say. We are created for perfect union with God, which means absolute pleasure, infinite, more perfect than we can imagine. But we are always choosing lesser goods. We are always choosing temporary satisfactions, which in the end lead us astray from our main goal, from the biggest happiness or satisfaction that lies within the union of God. And that is a sin, choosing a lesser good over the other, over the higher good. That's how St. Thomas Aquinas defines it. It's brilliant, actually. We're choosing the worse satisfaction. We're choosing the current good over the future perfect good. Well, we could speak about that a lot.
Might not be enough. More. You must
But the ache,
have more.
the yearning,
Many of the disciples
we
of
all have
Slaanesh
it.
carry
That's good.
demonic form in their lithe
We have to
grace.
understand it
The keeper
and
of
direct
secrets
it
is
properly,
his chosen
properly.
envoy, and their movements are a blur of dance and pain, with an aura all the more
Because this is
fatal.
just
They dance and sing, but there's always a
destruction.
form of malice behind every
Self-destruction
action they
completely.
take. An
The Slaanesh.
alluring gaze that will pull you in right before the demonic entity can crush you in that grip. Slaanesh's palace
succubus
has 6
type of
layers surrounding it, and one of them is the excess of gluttony, where the participant finds themselves in a beautiful banquet full of the most delicious foods imaginable. Tables of delicacies and rivers of wine tempt the user to such a degree that they cannot stop stuffing their face, unaware that the
And they
things they are
die.
eating are very vaguely familiar meat. If one does not
If you
see
watched
themselves
John
drowning in the
Constantine
river
with
of wine,
Keanu
they may
Reeves,
soon fill their
there is
bodies
a
up so
scene
much
of
that they cease to
poor
function
priest
and fall
dying.
over,
He
becoming part
tries to
of
quench
the
his
banquet
thirst with
themselves.
alcohol
That is
in
one
a
of
liquor
the
store,
6 layers
but
of
he cannot
Slaanesh's
feel
palace.
it, so he's just
This
breaking
was
the bottles and
ecstasy
stuffing
that
inside.
the
He
Eldar
cannot
civilization indulged in
drink
for
enough.
millennia, and did so at a
kinda reminded me
monumental
now.
scale that they create a god from it. Find pleasure in every moment. Indulge in every whim. Let lesser races feel the burden of their crude lives.
Yes,
we
it's
are
such
beyond
an
such concerns
anti-Christian
or
message,
worries.
isn't it?
Every power is ours to use. Every sensation ours to experience. We are truly
it's
masters
completely
of the
anti-Christian.
galaxy, and all others exist only to satisfy our curiosity.
Take up your
We have
cross
earned
and carry
our
it.
position of power. Let us forever taste the fruits of such achievement. Time itself is ours to command. We are eternal.
Okay, this is
With the birth of Slaanesh, the Eldari
Very
Empire
profane.
ceased to be. A catastrophic event so horrible that the warp ripped a hole permanently in our reality. A fissure forever known as the Eye of Terror. With the sudden inhalation of this god's largest breath, the Eldari souls are a currency to be now collected by she who thirsts. Trillions of Eldar died in an instant. Slaanesh gorging on their souls to satisfy his palate. 99.9% of their entire species died, and the rest are doomed to a fate worse than death. For Slaanesh now stakes a claim on each and every Eldar soul. From the moment they pass on, an eternity of torment awaits them. The remaining Eldar devote their entire lives to stopping this eventuality. Their dying race so devoted to saving themselves from the Dark Prince, and in doing so, have found very creative ways.
Craftworld Eldar.
In the modern world of Warhammer, the Craftworld Eldar are the main force of Eldar in the galaxy and represent the elf style that many think of when you think elves in space. Fantasy elves in space, not
we don't
those
think about
elves
in space.
We'll get to them. A craft world is a monumentally large starship, the size of a continent, that acts as a form of flotilla. During the highest reaches of hedonism, many Eldar saw the demonic writing on the wall and began to try and seek asylum from their own debauchery. Those Eldar left on monumental craft worlds into the far reaches of the galaxy and saved themselves from Slaanesh's awakening. The main thing the craft world Eldar seek is to temper their minds and bodies in a way that will never allow them to slide back into their old ways. The representation they carry is that of a more feudal Japanese motif. Eldar follow paths as they age, the path of the warrior, the seer, the poet, the diplomat, the bone singer, and so on. These paths are a strict code of conduct to hone the heightened Eldar psychology down a school of thought and action. And if it sounds a hell of a lot like Bushido, well, you're damn right. Here's a medal and a soul stone. Don't lose it or an eternity of torment awaits you. Going through these paths will allow you to take up not just a role in Eldar society, but keep your mind clear
in order
from the past worries that plague them. Every Eldar is said to be a psyker, however, very few of them actually utilize their psychic powers for fear of tempting she who thirsts. A large amount of emphasis is also put on ancestors of the Eldar and learning from them the farther you go down a path. This can sometimes be seen by the large variety of jewels adorning the armor of Eldar. Those are called soul stones, the biggest middle finger to Slaanesh they can think of. See, when an Eldar dies, these stones act as a backup, and instead of their souls going to Slaanesh, they are then trapped and stored in this little stone. So when the Eldar say they commune with their ancestors, they mean so very literally, as the spirit and soul of generations before them are stored here. Often larger structures may contain vast amounts of soul stones, such as the Infinity Circuit in the craft world itself, allowing the souls of the dead to help power their enormous starship. The young do not desire the discipline of the path, but rather their curiosity drives them to try every fruit from the tree. Thus, it is that so many take the path of wandering or the path of damnation in their first years of adulthood. And so, the great tragedy of our kind is played out again and again as the number of our people shrink from generation to generation. These paths, when completed, allow an Eldar to move to the next one, then the next one. However, since this is the grim darkness of the world, many of these paths rely on combat. The Eldar actually had gods at one point. Cain, Vol, Isha, Azaryan, and so on. These gods are aspects of the Eldar pantheon, and while many were killed in Slaanesh's creation, their teachings live on. For some, the strongest devotion to the Eldar gods is to join the Aspect Warriors and embody the wrath of Cain, their god of war. While guardians of the Eldar craft worlds are more akin to a trained militia, the Aspect Warriors embody a particular variant of the path. Each are led by a Phoenix Lord, a name passed down from generations and embodying the souls of prior Phoenix Lords with each new one. The Howling Banshees, led by Jane Zar, Fugan and his Fire Dragons, Baharoth,
Phoenix King Association
Morgan
from
Ra and his
Avatar
Dark
The Last
Reapers. Each
Airbender.
aspect shrine carries with it the Eldar way of war. Fast, hard-hitting, and incredibly tricksy, for they do not have the numbers to fight in any other way. The Craftworld Eldar show how mangled an empire can be by their own actions. They once ruled the galaxy in an honest, non-hyperbolic way, but in the end, they were bested by themselves, and their most prominent remnants are forced to drift aimlessly through the galaxy, trying to save their species from extinction and resist the temptations of she who thirsts. But for some, the party, it's just beginning.
Okay, that's the Drow. The Drukhari.
Deep within the webway is the city of Kamara. This dark city once existed as a port in the webway that allowed for ease of transport for the Eldar between its various domains. The significance of this city meant that it needed to be a bit more of a neutral territory outside of the jurisdiction of general Eldar law, and therefore it was allowed to self-govern. This did not go well. The Dark City became the hideaway for all manner of sin. The Eldar race slipped into debauchery on a galactic scale that it birthed a god, and this was the city you went to when that wasn't enough for you. The convenience of being so deep within the webway was that it exists as a blind spot to the horrors of the warp. So while the rest of the Eldar fled the downfall of their species, Kamara kept partying. When Slaanesh was birthed, they were saved the worst of it, thanks to them being nice and neatly tucked away inside the webway. But only somewhat. The Dark Prince did not have a grip around their soul, but the tiniest pinky finger, and they were still pulling. But due to their excess hedonism, they found a solution to this problem. If they tormented others, they could temporarily rejuvenate their souls and continue to cheat their inevitable death by placating the Prince of Pleasure. And if they kept this up on the regular, they could effectively become immortal. Thus, the Drukhari were born. Unlike the more stoic elves you see in works of fiction, the Drukhari themselves exist as a sort of analog of the more grim and fiendish elves you find in Norse and European mythology. The Drukhari are soul vampires, but the more basic means to feed are hardly enough to keep them going. This desire to feed is known as the thirst, and to quench it effectively, they have mastered the art of biotechnology and dark sciences to really juice themselves up on the crispy soul sprite from the vending machine called the Galaxy. The majority of Drukhari act as pirates and raiders and slavers. They go into our physical reality and drag people back to Kamara to commit atrocities that go beyond any imaginative torture a human can think of. The Drukhari are organized in various groups throughout the Dark City to accomplish this in a more organized and extremely brutal way. The Cabals act as the main warriors of the city, led by their archons. Witches and succubi act as entertainment for Kamara in gladiatorial arenas, and the flesh-crafting homunculus keep the Drukhari alive and discover ever-increasingly more painful ways to torment their ever-increasingly large supply of slaves they are brought. The Dark Eldar see the other inhabitants of the galaxy as little more than cattle, livestock that can be brought to bay or slaughtered at any time. Their fodder, however, is not meat and muscle, but the anguish and despair of the weak. The Dark Eldar do indeed drink blood, but also tears, and most sustaining of all, the raw essence of pain they wring out of their captives. The truth of the matter is that Drukhari sustain themselves on the suffering of others, not just morally, but physically. Kamara is a city rife with backstabbing schemes and murder. It is the...
I could say some things regarding that in our actual world, but I have a feeling I would be immediately banned by YouTube if I mentioned something like that.
Worst back alleys of the worst ghettos at the best of times. Nothing is more horrifying to a Drukhari than death.
Evil things
for
exist,
death will see them in the talons of Slaanesh for an eternity of torment. So they do everything they can to stop this. The homunculi covens regrow dead members
you can
from
watch
pieces
Sound
of
of Freedom
as
with Jim Caviezel a couple years ago.
Create grisly gladiatorial spectacles that literally rejuvenate the audience members as captives are murdered for sport. To be captured by the Drukhari is one of, if not the worst fate imaginable in the world of Warhammer 40k. In a universe built On war crimes, they are the most debased war crimers of all time. To be tortured and sacrificed in the gladiatorial arenas is a blessing, for you have escaped the fate
the definition
of being
of chaos
in these
evil,
fleshsmiths'
right?
control group, or being turned into a living and breathing piece of furniture for an Archon's quarters. In a cruel twist of fate, a newly born Drukhari does not arrive into this world loving torture. It is something they must grow to love. Grow to appreciate the suffering of other beings in order to survive in the world they have been brought into. If they succeed, they become some of the worst monsters in the known galaxy, a dark reflection to the Craftworlders, and a taste of what Eldar society was like before the fall.
That's an interesting choice that they made. They did not create the children. They did not make the children evil. They decided to leave the children innocent and for them to have to be tainted and corrupted with time, as it is in reality again. But they didn't have to do that within this universe.
They must find purchase elsewhere. Often those will join smaller parts of Eldar society like the Exodites or the Harlequins. Exodites believe in a pre-industrial variant of their society, often retreating to more lush worlds to ride dinosaurs and live off the land.
That's
prehistoric
cool.
Style that I would normally laugh at if they weren't riding dinosaurs like ballers. The Harlequin dancing troupe are a subsect of Eldar that are more than just a little strange. A carnival of dancing jesters that serve the Eldar laughing god of Kegarak. They arrive never when expected and leave just as quickly. Blurs of light carry their footsteps as they dance their foes into a grave. Combat is just as much of a joke as it is a play on bloody murder. They travel and aid many other Eldar and sometimes even humanity for reasons we can never understand. Perhaps one day we would have, were they not stripped of their army book and folded into the Eldari Codex. So I suppose it'll have to stay a mystery, or maybe it was one of Kegarak's master plans to get back at She Who Thirsts and save their species. Who could know? Perhaps it was all a sick and practical joke to Kegarak, and he would just find it very funny to watch me fumble the discussion of one human on a tiny blue planet across the galaxy. Oh, speaking of.
Okay, the Imperium of Man. Now this is the beginning of a new sector, new chapter. We've finished with the part of Xenos, I guess. Xenos is whatever is not human. Oh, the aliens are Xenos. Necrons, we had, well, in general, Chaos Gods. 3+1, and then the Eldari, because they are very much tied to the one of those Chaos Gods and tied to the fate of that Chaos God in a way. I think I'm gonna make a break here, and that I'm gonna cut this video right about here somewhere and make part 2 of the part 1 of every faction re-explained by Bricky. Interesting. I always have a specific idea what kind of a rating I'm gonna give the Necrons, the Eldari. Specific, I don't know. I said I'm gonna be ranking factions, but can we rate the Chaos Gods, Chaos Deities as specific factions? Can they be put inside of a one bowl? Maybe. Why not? We can make a creative freedom. We can allow ourselves maybe to do that, because I have different varying opinions on those 4 deities, for chaos or demon gods, whatever we want to call them. The Imperium of Man is a huge, I think, section in itself, and one for which I'm very much interested in. Also, I'm opting for some interesting reaction videos for specifically and exclusively on the Imperium of Man, because I really want to understand the background of the Imperium and specific parts of the history of the Imperium of Man to better understand the current, just, I would not say, no, what are they? Things that simply don't make sense to me currently, but I know that there is a specific history or background that happened, whether that is the the Crusades or the Ecclesiarchy when it was formed, the history on Adeptus Sororitas, which I am just a little part of me seeing a little part of them, and I already like them a lot. The nuns with guns concept, very unique, very interesting. I guess it will be very interesting to actually react on that when time comes. But also the rebellion of the AI, the Titans. My question is like, is that an actual artificial intelligence inside? What kind of spirit entity consciousness is abiding within? There are a lot of different questions that are rising, and the interesting thing is that even you guys who are very much well read within this type of a lore have sometimes conflicting information on the things that are happening within. I believe that's because of the reason that some things are left open, or like two reasons. One is things are changing. New novels, new parts of the story are being added, new explanations. So, okay, some lore things are being changed. Okay, that's part one. But other part is the things are not, they are left open. So it can be interpreted in one way or the other. So it depends on us and our perspective on this world. We see the world through the prism of our own experiences. Of course, we all do. It's hard to be, or maybe impossible to be completely objective. We don't have to, but we have to be oriented towards the truth, of course. But we see it through the lens of our own experiences, which is fine, So that's the reason why sometimes you have conflicting information. So, and I love it. I like it a lot. I take the both of them. You know, I can paint the bigger picture in a way. Okay, if you like this, like, share, subscribe, appease the machine spirit of YouTube, and I'll see you guys in part 2 of part 1 of Bricky, Every Faction Re-Explained. Goodbye, and God bless you all.
Pretty woman, walking down the street. Pretty woman, girl I like to be.